I want to tell you about a very, very important evening we're having this Friday, April 21st at office hours, an evening with comedian Judah Friedlander and Payday Reports Mike Elk, as well as Professor Mike Steinel. It's at office hours. We're doing a live taping of my podcast, and this is going to be huge. So I would really love it if you could come. It's free on Zoom. And if you sign up, you can even listen in by phone. You don't need Zoom. Come meet Judah Friedlander. He's one of the funniest people on the planet. And then we're going to meet my hero, Mike Elk, the founding editor of Payday Report, along with our beloved Professor Mike Steinel, author of Saving Charlie Parker, a novel. Let me tell you about Mike Elk, because he's never been on the show before. After he was illegally fired by Politico for unionizing their newsroom, he received a cash settlement. And instead of keeping it for himself, he built Payday Report, which is the most important and authoritative labor news site in America. I am proud to have as my guest Friday night, April 21st, starting at 8 p.m., Mike Elk. We're going to talk about labor unionizing. He has the most authoritative and definitive strike map. He monitors every strike, every union organizing attempt in America. He just got back from Brazil, where he was covering Lula. He travels all over the world covering labor. Plus, world champion comedian Judah Friedlander and Professor Mike Steinel. It's going to be about 90 minutes. We start at 8 p.m. Eastern. Ask some questions, raise your hand, or don't. Just listen. Go to my website right now, hit office hours. That will give you the link. Or subscribe to my newsletter. Or look at the description of this episode right now, wherever you're listening to this or watching this. In the description, you will see the Zoom link. Click on it, and if you don't have Zoom, it'll give you some phone numbers that you can dial into and listen to the interview. I look forward to seeing all my listeners Friday night at 8 p.m., April 21st, 8 p.m. Eastern. I look forward to seeing you.
You're listening to The David Feldman Show, you happy, self-actualized hump.
Donald Trump was the 45th president of the United States. I spoke with him earlier today. Was it scary being in the jail?
Well, not especially. I mean, except for all the Mexicans. But, Trump doesn't scare easily.
No. Yeah.
You know what the guard said to me, David?
What?
You know what they told me I had?
What?
Cojones, David.
I'm sorry, what?
They told me I had cojones, David.
Mm.
I'm not making that up. Not making that up, David. You know what that means? You know what that means, cojones? It's Honduran caravan for balls, David. Cojones. You have cojones, David. You do. You do. You also have cojones.
Oh, thank you very much.
In your mouth. In your mouth, David. That's where you have cojones.
Is that really necessary?
Yes, it was, David, because you're disgusting. You're so gross, David, and so mean. It was very much deserved, David. I'm sorry.
Okay, but tell me about your survival instinct. You're there in the Manhattan courthouse.
Here's the secret, David, to surviving in jail. Trump's little secret. I'm going to write a book. I should write a book, David.
Mm-hmm.
I really should. The secret to jail: find the toughest guy in the room and establish dominance, David.
I've heard that, right.
That's right. Right after I was fingerprinted, David, I looked around. I said, who's the alpha dog here? And you know what I did, David?
What?
I cold cocked him right on the spot, David. I just cold cocked him. And this guy was tough, David.
Right.
This guy was tough, sinewy, David. You know what that means, David?
Muscles.
Muscles.
Yeah.
It means he had muscles, David. Quite frankly, I'd never seen anyone that imposing, David. Honestly, it was very frightening, David, very frightening. Right out of Central Casting, David. Just like I told Tucker, you could look all over Hollywood and you would never find a guy this tough, David. I'm telling you,
And
David.
you cold cocked him.
It was terrifying
Yeah.
how dominant and how central casted, muscular this guy was, David. Most men, I cold cocked him. Most men, David, I'll tell you what, most men, let me tell you, most men would have crumbled, but not Trump.
Not true.
Not Trump. I looked him straight in the eye, David, and I said, you know what I said, David? I said, what are you looking at, punk? That's what I said. What are you looking at, punk?
Oh.
Right? Right?
Oh.
I know. And I beat the living crap out of him, David. Take a guess who it was, David. Guess who was the toughest guy?
I don't.
Go ahead and ask, David.
I don't know who would be.
Ask me who in the jail was the toughest guy that I had to show dominance to, because this guy was strong, David. This guy was sinewy and tough, David.
Okay. Who was the guy?
It was me, David. It was me. I was the toughest guy in the jail cell. And I had to show me who's boss. I had to kick my own ass, David. I won't lie. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie and say it didn't hurt, David.
So you had to establish dominance.
Oh, it hurt, David. You know what was the worst part, David?
What?
The rape. Because let me tell you something. The rape, I don't have any problem down there at all. So when I rape me, I'm going to feel it, David. I'm going to feel. Now, listen, David, I know it was wrong. I know. Believe me, I understand the law. I understand right from wrong. I knew it was wrong. But on the one hand, David, I had to show dominance. And on the other hand, David, in all honesty, David,
Yeah.
how could I resist me? But the bottom line is, David, I took care of business. I took care of business, David, and I put me in my place. And that was that.
You're listening to The David Feldman Show. You happy, self-actualized hump.
Let's start. Hang on. Here we go. Dr. Philip Hirschenfeld joins us. He's a real psychiatrist, a Freudian psychiatrist. And Ethan Hirschenfeld will be joining us shortly. I think he's getting a cup of coffee. So while we're waiting, you have a quiz for me. What is the question?
For Ethan, too.
Oh, here
Okay.
he's back. Here he is.
Whose birthday is it today?
Whose birthday is it today? So April 20th, Hitler's.
Yeah, that's,
420.
Yes, but that's the wrong answer.
It's not Shakespeare.
It's not Shakespeare.
Yours?
Guy McClock,
Menachem Begin.
Harold Lloyd.
Harold Lloyd.
Yes,
Wow. I'm a big fan of Harold Lloyd's.
so am I. He was a wonderful guy.
Yeah. Amazing pornography collection, like tasteful. I'm being serious. I'm absolutely serious. He made, when he retired, he liked to film beautiful women.
More power to him.
Yes. Well, happy birthday, Adolf Hitler. Happy Marijuana Day. Happy Hitler Day. And
Who's that behind you?
that would be Leslie cleaning up around her, doing as she's told.
Okay.
And, yes. And Ethan is just going to be wandering back and forth. Ethan, are you pacing? Are you look, what you're doing is you look like me, right? Or you look how I feel.
He's the wandering Jew.
What's the matter, Ethan?
Nothing. I was just, I'm in an Airbnb. I was just looking for somewhere to raise my computer up a little bit.
You're at an Airbnb, and is that a lifeguard perch or a prison camp perch? What is that?
Yeah, I think it's a lifeguard thing. I think I think that's what it is. Yeah. Exactly.
And where's your Airbnb?
It's in Wilshire Park in Los Angeles.
Oh, you're in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I'm here for an acting workshop that started on Monday. It's a 2-week thing with this acting coach. So I'm trying to, learn some new tricks.
And Dr. Hirschenfeld, you look like you're in a museum.
I'm in my office.
That's nice. It looks like they're
Very nice. I love it.
artifacts and
Many artifacts,
yes. So what
like Freud had.
did he collect artifacts?
Well, he had mostly Egyptian and Greek marbles and statues and statuettes. It was he was a great scholar of that. After the war, somebody saw in a newspaper ad, I think it may have been in Germany or Austria, a description of a collection that was for sale. And this person immediately recognized that it was Freud's, and he bought it. And it's now in his, reconstituted office in London.
Now, isn't it kind of pagan-like to collect totems and to feel like there's something of an import to inanimate objects? Isn't that what's so great about Abrahamic religions is that the false idols were destroyed and we keep it all in our mind?
Yeah, but he was not praying to them. He was using them for inspiration for Greek myths and Egyptian myths in order to understand human culture and the human mind.
Right.
And for paperweights, because Vienna was very windy. Very breezy. There were a lot of gusts, zephyrs. It was famous. Great sailing in Vienna.
What is the dividing line between collecting and hoarding? Like
17 objects. Less than 17, you're a collector. More than you're a pack rat.
When do you know? Like, I notice your office is very clean. The only thing in there, doctor, is sparking joy. Are you good at throwing things out, or do you? I hold on to certain things.
It's a constant struggle, but all of those things that you see behind me have a personal meaning to me. So I just like to look at them. I am of the school that believes, and not everybody agrees with this, some people have a very stark office, so they don't want to influence the patient or give away too much or whatever. I believe in having an office that is pleasing to me because I spend a lot of time in it.
And Dr. Benjamin.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Dr. Benjamin, author of Today Is Now, what does your office look like?
It's actually a different focus, a different theoretical focus vis-a-vis the space in which the therapeutic exchange occurs.
Uh-huh.
Dr. Benjamin's philosophy is make sure that your office is within your apartment so you don't have to pay extra rent.
That's
his main thing.
Yeah.
Just a simple curtain can separate the living space and the pets and the food smells from the quote unquote office.
And is that a metaphor for the brain and the dark recesses of the subconscious?
It's more of an imperative from the accountant who says you can't afford also to rent an office. So yeah,
do you put plastic slipcovers on the couch that your patients lie on?
No, it's best to just apply the plastic slipcover directly to the patient. That way, the minute they're in there, if they lean against a wall, if they touch a light switch, they don't get any of their greasy. I notice that the patients tend to have a lot of grease.
So you Scotch guard the patients before they sit down.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
So there are no permanent stains.
Yeah. That's it's the same reason why I wear a shower cap all day. It's a similar idea. You never know when. It's unrelated, but it's
you never know when it's going to rain.
Yeah, or when you're gonna suddenly be in a shower.
be in a shower. So bring soap and a shower cap.
Yeah.
And don't waste.
Yeah.
You want to see some interesting artifacts of my collection, of my
Yes.
office?
Yes.
Okay.
Show and tell.
So,
The Elephant
Show
Man's
and
bones. Unbelievable. I thought the Jackson estate kept those.
can you see this clearly?
It looks like
Oh, that's the reflection. You got to go from a lower angle. Oh, I know that one. Yeah, I won't tell, but I know what that is.
it would be a woman being hypnotized.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember the name. It wouldn't be Freud.
No, Freud was a medical
Oh,
student.
don't say
Brewer.
it. Don't say it. I know who it is. I know who it is. It's either Penn or Teller. I can't remember which one.
I used to know the name. I want to say
Oh,
Brewer.
Merman, like Ethel Merman. It's Merman.
That is Freud right there.
Right.
This is a famous moment in psychoanalysis. He
It's
won
Mesmer.
scholarship
Mesmer.
to study with Charcot,
Oh,
who was a
Charcot.
very famous neurologist in Paris, in Salpêtrière.
He also was the inventor of the cold cut, the charcuterie.
So was it Mesmer? Is that his name?
Mesmer is somebody else. This is Charcot. He hypnotized hysterical women, which was the AIDS, so to speak, of the 19th century. It was not understood. It was ubiquitous. It was ruining lives. And Freud wrote that when he saw Charcot hypnotize a woman out of her hysterical state, he suddenly got the idea of the unconscious mind and how powerful it was.
Now, when you say there was a hysteria craze, there was a hysteria, basically.
Yes, yes, yes.
It was catching.
Yeah, oh, it is. You read about schoolgirls of a certain age who the whole class or sometimes the whole school starts fainting or getting paralyzed, or it's a group hysteria. Absolutely.
or wanting to buy those mini muffins.
That's it.
or Uggs. They want to wear Uggs.
In all seriousness, go ahead, Doctor. Dr. Benjamin.
No, I wanted to say the other way in which the hysteria craze of the late 19th century resembles, in a superficial way, the AIDS epidemic of the 1980s is that about a decade later, every single play off Broadway in Vienna was about hysteria.
And the hysteria quilt,
Right.
which don't forget the hysteria. So what is hysteria? What does it mean?
Like if I allow me, doctor.
I allow you, sir.
Okay, like let's say, okay, I'll see if this works. So this is Rodney Dangerfield said, my wife and I had 20 great years. Then we met. See, that reaction of yours, that's hysteria. It's when you laugh your ass off. Or is that something else?
That's something else.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's hysterical. Hysteria is, Galen described hysteria. It's been around for a long time. It's a Greek word meaning uterus, like hysterectomy.
Right.
They thought in the olden Greek days that it was a malady caused by a wandering uterus.
A floating uterus, which is actually a popular birthday balloon. It's a boy. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
A floating uterus. What is a floating uterus? Okay.
It moves around the body, and whichever part of the body it moves to was thought to be the one that was exhibiting the symptom, like a paralysis or an inability to speak. Go on, doctor.
Is that true? Real doctor?
No, of course not. But that's what was thought.
That is what was thought.
They thought for
Oh.
2,500 years, yes. And it was all further thought, incorrectly, that only women could become hysterical because only women had a uterus. This also is patently untrue.
Right. And Jerry Lewis got into trouble saying women aren't hysterical. I remember that interview.
Okay. So,
That's
so
it.
that-
So how does hysteria manifest itself?
any way you can imagine. I once told a story of a man, actually, early patient whom I saw. I got a call. A guy says, I've been to 1 million doctors. They all tell me to see a shrink, but there's nothing wrong with me. So I said, well, come on in, we'll have a talk. So he comes in. His wife is leading him in by the hand. He's bumping into things. He says, I'm blind. And his eyelids were flipping up and down. And she sets him in a chair, and then she leaves. And I say, so what's the story? He says, I've been a gambler my entire life. David, you don't remember this story of mine. It really hurts me. But
Don't worry, I remember it.
I don't remember this.
I know you don't, but I told you.
It's from 3 years ago. We've been doing this for 3 years now. So
Right. Okay. I've been a professional gambler my whole life. I have bet literally suitcases full of money on college basketball, on football, on baseball, and you name it, I will bet on it. Sometimes I win, sometimes I lose. And I became blind recently, and all the doctors tell me that my eyes are absolutely fine, but I promise you I cannot see a thing. So I said, well, tell me about your life. So he says, well, I live in a 3-room apartment in the Bronx. My 17-year-old daughter's pregnant. My 18-year-old son is on heroin. My wife and I do nothing but fight. And he said, and this is exactly what he said, I woke up one morning and looked at what my life had become, and I could not stand seeing it. Now, he had absolutely no idea what he was saying. He thought he was just telling me,
Right.
his stuff. But this was like my first year of practice. So I learned later not to do this kind of stuff. So I said to him, did you hear what you just said?
The impulsive psychiatrist. It's a great idea for a sketch.
In the first 20 minutes of the interaction, I say, you hear what you said? He says, no, what did I say? I said, you said you could not stand what you saw. So you stopped seeing. The guy stands up, stares at me with absolute hatred, storms out of the room without bumping into anything. And to this day, I have no idea, was that a permanent cure? Or did he get into the waiting room and close his eyes again?
incidentally,
Wow.
And you never saw the check.
There's no check.
The old I can't see ruse. I do that at
No.
restaurants all the time. I can't.
No money changed hands.
Yeah.
But that's hysteria, that there's some thought, some feeling, some idea that is expressed through the body. So in this case, he was expressing through his eyes. I can't stand seeing what a mess I made of my life.
Like today, I was expressing through my body that I had 2 vegan burritos yesterday.
Mm.
And how did you
Through just feeling full. Through just feeling full.
Full.
Yeah.
Before
feeling-
let me ask Dr. Benjamin this question.
Yes.
There are puns in our dreams. So what were dreams like before language?
It was. So you're saying there are puns in the
And
dreams,
symbolism, and like, I can't
Yes.
see, I don't like to see what my life has become. So then he stops seeing. So words become metaphors for conditions.
Before language, dreams were like silent movies. Seen a silent movie, that's what it was. It was just, and the people moved kind of fast. And there was a lot of streetcars and bowler hats. Everyone had bowler hats.
We're back to Harold Lloyd.
Yeah, even the women had bowler hats, and things were always falling, and there was also a lot of piano music in dreams before language. Tons
By
of
the
piano.
way, he is absolutely 1,000% correct. because dreams are primarily visual, and the words that we attach to them, we may probably put them in later. It's a visual experience.
Did Moses interpret the Pharaoh's dreams, or did I dream that?
That was
Joseph,
Joseph. So Joseph.
interpreter of dreams.
So Joseph was like the first psychiatrist.
Interestingly, he was, but little known fact, he spoke no Arabic. So he didn't know what the hell he was, just making the whole thing up. There was another prisoner.
He just knew how to say "go on."
Exactly.
Go on in Arabic.
And
right.
and he also knew the word fascinating. And there was one more phrase he knew in Arabic, which was, "I'm sorry, our time is up."
In fact, that's why they invented the sundial. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the 50-minute sundial.
The 50 minutes. L.A. Do you worry about your son when he's in L.A.? My son was in London, and I worried. Do you still? When do you stop worrying?
You don't. I worry about my son 200% of the time.
What are you worried about?
I'm not worried like gnashing my teeth.
Yeah.
But, how's he doing? What's going to happen?
You know what? Let's reframe that. Let's turn that frown upside down, David and Phil. What you're both are talking about is just parental love. That's not worry. It's just you want things to go well for them.
Right.
Okay.
You don't have to look at the burnt crust. You can look at the whipped cream on top.
And driving through L.A.,
Yes.
do you sometimes worry that they're right and you're wrong? That you drive around and you see the wealth and the superficiality and the plastic surgery, and you wonder.
I eschew.
God bless you.
I eschew generalizations, ethnic, religious, geographic, interplanetary. I mean, some people say Martians are this and Martians are that. They come in all different shapes and sizes.
So there's a specific type of Martian you hate.
There's a type of Martian that most are the actors. That's why you see the Martian actors are the ones you see in the movies, the green one.
Right.
There are lots of different kinds of Martians. No, I really think that in the most superficial sense, these neighborhoods here are incredible. The blue sky, the lawns, a lot of which, to their credit, are now AstroTurf, which I noticed, which is great. And they make it look pretty real, but it's great for the environment, not too much water. And, a lot of people here are struggling. It's the same thing.
A lot of homeless.
There's a ton of homeless people. And then I'm just doing this acting workshop for 2 weeks. And one of my classmates here is a guy, he's an actor from Burma, from Myanmar, who fled the military dictatorship. He's having to start his career over here with just a year of English. He's, already been in movies and commercials over there. There are people from Australia. There's a guy from Belarus who's a stuntman.
He's a big shot in Burma. If he stays, he'll get arrested. And
he'll be in jail. He was in hiding. He had to flee across the border.
And in L.A., he can't get arrested. Nobody will. That's got to be tough.
Anyhow, no. Is it superficial? I don't know. I really don't believe in these stereotypes. Like people in New York are deeper in some way. No, come on.
I think San Francisco is superficial. I think you wake up every day and it's so beautiful and so nice that you can't be miserable. And next thing you know, you're 120 years old and you haven't done anything.
Could be.
Now, go ahead, doctor. Real doctor.
Here's a generalization that I stand by, that I figured out when I was 17 years old, reading Crime and Punishment. And I thought to myself, if Dostoevsky had grown up in Miami Beach, he would be writing chick lit. Right? He could not have been writing like this unless he was in this miserable, cold, hostile. So that's a generalization I stand by.
But that's actually not a generalization. That's very specific to Dostoevsky. And then there's another guy named, I think, Knut Hansen, this guy who wrote Hunger,
Right.
Christianaville or whatever, the thing that became Oslo, similar time period, similar level of poverty and misery. And then there's Hemingway. Isn't he in the Keys, in the beautiful Keys in Florida, not far from Miami, writing deep, psychological, dark things about human suffering?
But he went through the First World War as an ambulance driver. So he
True.
suffered too.
Yeah.
Right. They used to say.
I just read a wonderful line that one poet said about another poet. Maybe somebody said about Yeats. The idea was that the suffering of Ireland was what made him into a poet. It was said more elegantly than that because it was said by a poet, but that was the main idea, that he had to be a poet because of the suffering of Ireland.
That was what they used to say about stand-up comedians, that only New York could produce stand-up comics because the suffering is so intense. But then Robin Williams came out of San Francisco. People can be in happy places and still be suffering in many ways. You can suffer. I remember going to my boss's house, and it was I've never seen a house like this. I walked in, I went, wow. And I paused and then I said out loud, I could be miserable here. I see how I could be miserable. And he went, that's right. And I said, well, I'd rather be miserable here, actually, when you see people with lots of money buying beautiful things, it does bring them what? It brings somebody like Barbara Streisand, who creates this living dollhouse in Malibu for herself that must have cost millions of dollars. Maybe it doesn't bring her happiness, but it brings her what? Calm? Something. There must be something to having all this money because they don't want to give it up.
No, they don't want to give it up, that's for sure.
So there must be something.
Or there's something that they hope will derive from it. And sometimes it does. Some people with a lot of money do manage to do meaningful things for themselves. But others are just like hoarders who we started out with today.
Right.
If you're just hoarding stuff for the sake of owning it, I don't think you get much pleasure.
I think you can get relief from certain things. You can insulate yourself from noise and from other things that you find troublesome in a way that if you didn't have that dough, you couldn't create that kind of physical space. Right. But I think ultimately anybody, even if you don't have a lot of dough, I mean, it's a cliche, but I think it is true that the only real happiness or contentment or joy or fulfillment you can get is from doing stuff for other people. Whatever the hell that is, if it's making people happy.
You know what? I want you to be joyous. Can you come over and do my dishes, please? I want to see a smile. I want to give you joy. I got dishes.
That's actually already just thinking about it.
That's one of the chores I enjoy. I might have mentioned this before. I can't stand making a bed. I mean, it makes me crazy. I can't make a bed. I like doing the dishes. It feels somehow, I don't know what it is about it.
Me too.
Like the soap, the warm water. Although environmentally, it's better to use the dishwasher, which is counterintuitive for a lot of people, but it uses a lot less water. So
yeah. There's something about. I think it's creative to do dishes, to clean. To me, writing is cleaning up. It's cleaning up your thoughts. So when I start cleaning, I get creative. What are you reading?
And you get the soap in your ears.
I get the soap in my ears. What are you reading?
Right now I'm reading this monologue. I'm about to lay it down. It's an audition for a video game. And it's an interesting thing. It's the kind of character I've never auditioned for before. He's totally off his rocker. He's on a combination of meth and coke. And it says he's wild. He's rambling wildly, like speaking really fast and kooky. So that's what I've been reading. So I'm about to tape that. Yeah.
Are video games now more profitable than movies in Hollywood? I read somewhere that that you're more likely to get cast in a video game these days than a movie. Is that true?
I don't know. I got cast in one of these once for the role of a Moroccan warlord.
Mhm.
I recorded it, I got paid, and then they recast it because I was making up that Moroccan Berber accent, and
Right.
I had a coach and all that. And then they decided, I don't know why, but I assume they decided they wanted an actual Moroccan.
Have you ever played a video game, Dr. Hirschenfeld?
Did I ever play? I think my kids 100 years ago tried to teach me how to play Pac-Man or something like that. And I was a total bust. And I threw it on the ground and never tried again.
Stomped on it.
But these,
Stomped on it. I am reading something I'd like to plug. It's a book of poetry. It's wonderful, called Paradise by Victoria Riddell, Redel. Slim volume, not expensive. The kind of poems that you want to read. I must have offended him or something.
what's he holding?
No, I wanted to share a book.
Oh,
Because I think that Alan, our cousin who passed away recently, I think he gave me this. This is something that he loved. Zen in the Art of Archery, which was published in the middle of the last century.
I love the cover, the art.
It's a beautiful, and it turns out the cover is not from something. It's cover art made for the book. It's really cool. It's a study of, well, he was a professor, a German professor of philosophy living in Japan, and took up this art form of archery. And it's a slim book also, that it's about what the teacher teaches about how to do this thing.
Right.
And it's beautiful and simple in their lessons, basically for life.
Right.
and in the middle of the last century, that was a very popular book, along with Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Which I think must have been a riff on this. It was more of a spoof. It was more of like a counterculture riff on this, I believe. I'm not
Okay,
sure.
maybe you're right. Okay.
Fantastic.
Robert Pirsig, I guess.
Dr. Philip Hirschenfeld is a real psychiatrist. Fascinating. This is the first time we've come from your office. This is
It is, yes.
It's the first time I'm coming
Running
at you from
planes,
Los
if my
Angeles.
computer was here. And
it would be funny if you go, now I say goodnight, and then you turn to the patient and go, continue, madam. You were saying about your father. Today is Now by Dr.
Today Is
Samuel
Now.
Benjamin. It gets the Feldman guarantee. If you,
Yeah. Oh, I'm also going to plug the book by this is the acting studio that I'm studying at. I'm doing this class at. It's called Margie Haber Studios.
Mm-hmm.
And she has a book that's about acting, but it's also about life. And so I feel like it would sit well on the shelf next to Dr. Benjamin's book.
Yes.
It's called Fuck Your Comfort Zone.
Right,
Take a risk and become the lead in your own life.
right.
So it's like acting and living. So that's a plug for my teacher's book.
And I read her sequel, Fuck My Comfort Zone, which... All right, sorry.
this show is degenerating.
I apologize.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Thank you, Dr. Philip Hirschenfeld, and thank you, Ethan. We'll see you next Thursday.
See you then.
Okay,
I think so.
great
Goodbye.
job.
Adieu.
Thank you.
Adieu.
Thank you.
Adieu. Adieu.
Adieu.
Adieu. Adieu.
You're listening to The David Feldman Show. You happy, self actualized hump.